Crimes of the Future is the 22nd feature film directed by David Cronenberg, and it was released in 2022. It is his first body horror film since 1999's Existence. It is either a culmination or a Frankenstein's monster conglomeration of all of his previous films. There are significant elements from Crash, Videodrome, Naked Lunch, and Existence, with a bit of Scanners and The Fly. It is a film so overloaded with imagery and symbolism that the metaphors are explicitly stated, so they aren't missed in the menagerie. It's a mess, but a thoroughly fascinating one. The basic plot is that Saul, played by Viggo Mortensen, has been developing extraneous, useless organs. His business partner, lover, and performance artist Caprice, played by Leo Seydoux, extracts these growths in front of a live audience via an H.R. Geiger-esque machine. This attracts the attention of the National Organ Registry, an organization within the US government that seeks to categorize these abnormalities that have become increasingly common. Cronenberg's second film has the same name as this one, but they share virtually no similarities. The only connection is they're both set in a bizarre future. The film's themes involve what it means to be an artist and what art is. It's also about what it means to be human, and how humanity today differs so drastically from the centuries past. In fact, Cronenberg said in an interview that our nervous systems are completely different from 100 years ago. He also discussed how the film is about humanity evolving and adapting. The atmosphere of this film creates is like no other, with the closest comparison being the works of Marc Caro and Dominique Pinon, most notably Delicatessen and The City of Lost Children. That is helped by the creations of Cronenberg, the biological beds, chairs, and operating pods that make up the world. It's fascinating to look at, but can be overwhelming, especially with the exposition-heavy dialogue. There are very few lines dedicated to character growth or humanity. They almost all serve to further either the plot or the themes. Despite this, the actual storyline is barely there. Numerous side plots wander in and out, and there's no catharsis. This is ultimately a film made for one man, and that man is David Cronenberg. It's difficult to recommend it without a number of precautions, preparing the prospective viewer for the spectacle. If someone has seen a number of his films and enjoyed them, they're more likely than not to enjoy this. Although this one has the least traditional structure, the best test is to watch the first scene of the film in full. If still intrigued, continue watching. If not, leave it be. Star rankings are not applicable to this sort of film. This ends the spoiler-free section. The opening of the film is about a dozen different studio logos, likely paying tribute to the screenplay almost 2 decades in the making. In the initial 2003 production, Nicolas Cage was cast as the main character, then Ralph Fiennes. As discussed previously, the opening scene is striking. An overturned ship lies watching in the backdrop, and a child piles dirt into a cup. He is called in by his mother. He brushes his teeth and everything seems normal, although the room is filthy. Then, white foam still dripping from his mouth, he begins to chomp on a plastic trash can. He eats it like it was a cracker, and his mother stares aghast at the sight. The scene cuts, and he's sleeping peacefully on his bed. The mother then slowly takes a pillow and strangles him. She then calls up presumably the father on an 80s-style cell phone, telling him that she killed the creature, and it will be there when he comes for it, though she will have left. It's a hell of an opening scene and sets up everything for the rest of the film. The oddly fluctuating levels of technology, blasé reactions to murder, incredibly dark humor, bizarre behavior from characters, color palette and environments, and the main theme of eating. The death of a child on screen also shows that nothing will be held back during the course of the film. Everything will be shown. The whole scene is then irrelevant for about half an hour, which in many ways demonstrates the structure of the film perfectly. Saul is then introduced, as well as the bizarre biological bed that he sleeps in. Despite its appearance, however, it, along with the rest of the living technology in the film, is not gross. It doesn't drip or pulse or spew. Despite connecting directly with the user, sticking to them, it's surprisingly sterile. The world building comes into play here. In many other stories, this would be a utopian society. Humans no longer feel pain or get diseases, which explains why even the most filthy places are allowed to rot. There's no single building, street, or location that's not gray, brown, or worn down. It is a reflection of people themselves who have become soulless wraiths due to their near-immortal condition. Without pain, people have become desperate to feel anything. Surgeries are performed on street corners, sticking knives into each other just to see results. Cosmetic surgery is now done by artists, and body alteration has become performance. This is the only form of entertainment shown in the film, and even sex is described as obsolete, an old art that this new form of surgery has supplanted. To truly be inside another person, to feel their innards and take them out, That is something that can't be replicated in any other way. A number of features of humanity have been lost due to this new society. One of the largest ones is color, shown most in costuming. Throughout the film, characters are shown in either white, gray, or black. The most common costume is white shirt with gray pants. No character ever wears pure white except the child at the beginning. Saul always wears pure black, as does the police officer character, Cope. Normally the assertions would be white equals good, black equals bad, but instead it seems to be more of white equals free, black equals controlled. Both the employees of the organ registry wear a mix of white and gray, as they work for a lawful group, but both do illicit activities on their off time. The police officer obviously wears completely black, as he is the only law in the film. Despite multiple murders happening during the course of the film, he is the only police officer ever seen. There's no greater organization behind him. And that's the case for almost everything in the film. There's so few people. The organ registry office, purported to be a national company, consists of only 2 people in office, with miscellaneous files just piled around. It's such a unique take on things, as it's definitely not a matter of budget or anything like that. Cronenberg could get a large budget and could have a huge amount of extras, could have police running around, but that's not what he chooses to do. There is a little bit of color, however, in the operation. That's the only time when there is anything resembling non-grayscale. Caprice wears a red dress, and the small scarab-like creature that she holds on her to control the operation pod lights up in different, almost light bright type colors. There's blue and green and yellow and red. In effect, the only time anyone is alive, which is shown by the colors, is when they're operating, when they're doing this procedure. The other color is the purple bars that are shown a few times early on, but become crucial to the climax of the film. Effectively, they are the food source for the new generation of humans. That is what most of the film is about, is humanity evolving, in this case, evolving to no longer eat normal biological things like meat and vegetables, but instead this synthetic poison effectively. In many ways, it's a comment on environmentalism. Humanity has destroyed everything else, so they have to create their own toxic waste and devour it. The way the resistance movement has done it is they have had these surgeries done on themselves so that they can process this toxic material. But the child shown at the beginning was able to eat it naturally, in a way that's deliberately not explained in the film. The child was a miracle. He was born with a completely different set of organs which allowed him to process this material that should have been toxic to him. At the end of the film, they do an autopsy on the child, and it is shown in full, just cutting open a dead corpse of a little kid. It is hard to watch, but is necessary for how society is depicted. However, in the end, when they cut open into him, they see all these tattooed organs. So it seems like he is not in fact natural born, he has been replaced with others. It is then revealed, however, by the police officer that this was done beforehand. He was cut open, had his normal natural organs that could actually process things replaced by these fake organs from the organ registry office. This all happens off screen, however, and even after explaining it, it doesn't make any sense, and that is intentional. It's not meant to make sense or have this normal story progression. When things like this happen, they just happen, because this entire world doesn't make sense, and that's deliberate. For example, if people no longer get diseases, no longer feel pain, there should be a lot more old people running around, but there aren't. Most of the people shown are young, with Saul being probably the oldest, but he is also shown to be the new stage in human evolution with these extraneous organs that pop up. Because that's the actual finale for the film, is him finally embracing these organs instead of having them removed. A comparison for the structure of the film to what Saul was doing to his body, where he was removing these organs before they had time to fully gestate, to fully come to fruition, and that was exactly what this film is. That's why the conclusion of it is the way it is, because it's been removed before it's been completed, because human society is not quite ready to embrace this next step yet. He's able to embrace this future, which is talked about quite early on, as one of these surgeons that he goes to says that they install doors and windows into the future by cutting open people. And that is exactly what happens to him. He has a zipper cut installed on his stomach, allowing someone to just look inside and see his organs, see the growths. And another way of the future is the boy is described as having outer space inside of him, which has been the go-to future for so long, looking up into the stars and seeing the infinite possibilities. Saul is only able to embrace this, however, when he stops working with the police as that's what he's been doing for the entirety of the film, is talking with them, providing them with information, which explains the black clothes that he wears, as for the longest time he has embraced that uniformity, that control. By taking out the organs, even in a artistic way, it is still sticking with what he originally had, his normal organs. He was unwilling to accept a future because it was scary to him. That freedom was terrifying. This can also be seen in the way he dresses when he goes out. He is completely covered in black with only his eyes revealed, hiding himself away from both the world outside but also the world inside with his own strange growths. Another way is described as both a light and a black hole, which shows this conflict, but the conflict isn't shown in costuming because for the length of the film he hasn't embraced this future, and it's only after he does that there would be the chance of things to change. But as before, the film ends sort of right before another film may have had a proper conclusion. It's just over. It's cut out. One of the other things the film does is how incredibly funny it is. It's very, very darkly comedic with how the deaths happen, with the different biological creatures. Everything about it has this certain satirical air to it. There's even at one point what seems to be a reference to Terry Gilliam's Brazil with the two pairwomen who work on these biological creations. They say, "You called us, we're here," which is exactly what the air conditioning repairmen say in that film. And that's another one which has a lot of very dark comedy and is a satirical take on bureaucracy. One major difference from that film, however, is in this one there is no money. So money is a huge focus of that, not being able to pay for funerals and things like that. Like even dead people cost money, which is something true to reality, especially in America. But in this film, there is never any exchange of money or goods or anything, really. In this society, there is no benefit to it. Things simply are one way or are another way, which is again a utopian ideal that has become corrupted in this society, or the negative consequences are shown. Ultimately, the film is messy. It is gross. There are flies buzzing around. The environments remind us of the worst parts of a city, and very few of the characters actually talk like human beings or act like them or give something to latch onto in terms of characterization, in terms of how they feel about things. It's due to the way the dialogue is. There's none of that. It's not intentional. The closest comparison that came out recently is Mad God, where there was actually no structure to that film effectively, especially in the second half. This one is a bit more structured and has more character, but it's not aiming to be a traditional film, and that is both a positive and a negative. Ultimately, it is what it intends to be, which is impressive in terms of a multi-million-dollar project that is effectively an auteur film made for exactly one person. It is definitely worth a watch. There are so many elements to it that are fascinating. Just as many elements are also baffling, and in the end it's hard to really understand whether the viewer enjoyed it or not. But it does beg a lot of questions, both of the film and the themes discussed, and in many ways that's what art is supposed to do. This has been an improvised review, as I had a lot of difficulty trying to put my thoughts onto script. So if you enjoyed this style, please let me know, as generally I prefer much more structure, but with a film as strange as this one, it was hard to keep that. Either way, I hope you've enjoyed and have a lovely day.